What up? This is Rama Screen, and in the anticipation of The Believer, which is now already available on digital platforms everywhere, I'm here talking with the star of this new horror film, Aidan Bristow. How are you, Aidan?
I'm doing well, Rama. Thanks for having me. Appreciate you wanting to talk about the film.
No problem. Thank you for taking the time. Congratulations, by the way. I almost forgot. I was a huge fan of your previous film, Alone We Fight. I had an
Oh, cool.
excellent conversation with the director Justin Lee about that. Yeah, so that's pretty cool movie.
Oh,
Believer,
cool.
of course, is on the other end of the spectrum. So talk to me about how you got on board Shan Seraphin's project, and what was your reaction when you first read his script?
Yeah, so me and Sean have been friends for over a decade. One of the first
Hmm.
films that I was in when I moved to Los Angeles was a horror film that he directed called Forest of the Living Dead. And through that, we just developed a friendship. And then we ended up working on a bunch of plays together where he directed me in plays. And yeah, he was over at my place and we were just talking. We wanted to make like a film together, just like working together. And we wanted a concept that took place in all in one location. So that was like the biggest thing, just for fiscal reasons and keeping the budget low. And Sean's a really talented writer. He's a ghostwriter for James Patterson. He's a New York Times bestseller writer. And what he's really good at is when you give him basically an overlay of like a story or a concept, and then he can go off and bang out a script or a novel. And so we threw around a few ideas here at my place, and then he went off and he came back with this really phenomenal script and concept. And then kind of the rest is history. Sophie's an old friend of mine from acting class, and we've been always wanting to work together. And so I presented this to her, and she really liked the role because it's a part she doesn't usually get cast in. Yeah, we just kept moving forward.
Wow, I'm a James Patterson fan, so
Oh,
I'm
cool.
I'm automatically Sean's fan now.
Oh, cool, cool. Yeah, no, he's very talented, and he's ghostwritten for James quite a few times now. So
Cool. This is such a trippy film. What's fascinating is that as your character Lucas was struggling to tell hallucination and reality apart, we the audiences, as we're watching Lucas, are also wondering which ones that he's seeing is real and which ones he's seeing are just in his head. Is Lucas the most challenging character you've played so far, and what was it like inhabiting his mind?
I think playing Lucas would have been the most challenging part if I didn't have the luxury of rehearsal. And so
Mm,
me, Sean, and Sophie, we rehearsed for almost 5 months every single week prior to shooting. And
mm.
so that really gave us an advantage as far as being able to talk about everything, talk through everything. There was not a lot of question marks by the time that we started filming, which was really great as far as who my character is, what he's thinking, when is he delusional, when is he actually seeing what's actually happening around him. And so from that aspect, I was really lucky because you're right, it is a very complex character. I'm glad that as you were watching it, it seems like you were kind of questioning his sanity back and forth. And so that was really the goal. But, just having access to Sean for months prior to filming was really helpful in that. I'd say probably the most challenging thing I've ever played was Strawberry Flavored Plastic, which was an independent film I did a few years ago. And the reason why that was challenging is because that character is a serial killer. He's murdered quite a few people, and the whole film only works if we could find the humanity in that character and make you as an audience kind of empathize with him. And so I don't know if we certainly were like 100% successful in that, but that challenge was definitely probably the most challenging thing I've ever attempted. Yeah.
The interactions between Lucas and Violet are also pretty tough to watch. I mean, there are times when I was like, okay, who's abusing who here? It's madness. But you and Sophie were very committed to those scenes. So I commend you both for that. Talk to me about the conversations that you had with Sophie in order to play out those scenes as visceral as possible. What was the process that you both had for that?
Thank you, by the way. I appreciate that. It's a very kind question. Yeah, so I think what we wanted to do, me and Sean, and Sophie, what we talked about was this idea that the argument is all in the subtext. So when they're arguing, a lot of times, like our hope is that if someone who didn't speak English, right, was to watch it, they might not actually know that they're having a fight because they're kind of like saying the passive aggressive things through like their smiles, you know? And so we really wanted to kind of have that feel for it, just to create, you know, a lot of tension, especially in the first act. So again, rehearsal was kind of the key to that. Like, and that was really the genius of Sean, because me and Sophie would go off and we would just learn our lines prior to sitting with Sean and rehearsing with him. And a
Mm.
lot of times, you know, as actors, you don't know that it's definitely subtext or not subtext. And so we kind of played a lot of those scenes very argumentative. And Sean would come in and be like, no, 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 guys, you know, and he kind of explained, like, he wanted this feel that, like, if someone was just like looking from far away and couldn't hear them having the conversation, they would never know they're having a fight. But with the camera being so close to the actors, you then see the tension and you kind of see what's behind the eyes. So a lot of those conversations was like that, because we knew things were going to get chaotic eventually, but we wanted to like push that chaos like a little further down the road. And in the beginning, in the first and a bit of the second act, have it just be this thing, this like tight wire of tension the whole time. So that was really a lot of those conversations.
Oh man, that's awesome. And it plays out really well on the screen. And of course, um, getting therapized by the guy who played the villain in Titanic, Billy Zane, must have
Yeah.
been a unique experience. I'm sure you've gotten this question 1,000 times, but what was it like working with the great Billy Zane? I've never met him, but he strikes me as a bit of an intimidating presence. Am I correct there?
I would say you're not correct, to be 100% honest. But I do understand why you would think that for sure. Yeah, no, I have been asked this a lot, and I'm always happy to answer it, just because I was certainly a fan of his work before I got to meet him. And yeah, it was a complete joy. Like, as I'm sure you are, I was a fan of a lot of his films, and getting to work with him was like a really cool milestone for me in my career. And yeah, Billy was really generous. Like, in his contract, there was nothing that said he had to do a rehearsal, but out of the kindness of his heart, he volunteered to meet up with us prior to his shoot date, and we went through all the scenes and we talked about them. And what was great too is that in between scenes, he would give us little anecdotes and things that had happened on previous films that he worked on, and films that I knew that he had, you know, been in. And so that was just a real treat. And him and Sean got along really, really well during rehearsal. And so once we got onto set, that kind of chemistry really transferred over. And yeah, he was just a consummate professional. He showed up, he was prepared. We did our scenes. We worked him a lot for the few amount of hours that we had him. And he just delivered with flying colors, as I'm sure you noticed in the film. He does a really great job in it.
Underneath it, does this film want to convey something about themes of couples and relationship, or did Sean just want to make a straight up, like, a horror film that will just be messing with your head?
Yeah, no, I think Sean has had you know, his own history of relationships, and I think some of his experiences get kind of projected into this. And I you know, I don't want to speak too much in Sean's personal life, but I think there is like a universal sense that sometimes when you've been with someone for many, many years, it becomes hard to kind of recognize them, you know, in the present day versus when you first met them. Like, sometimes you struggle to find the person that you might have fallen in love with when you first met them in the person that shows up in the relationship in the current day. And so I think that's something that a lot of people can kind of universally relate to. And in our film, we try to do that. In the beginning, we don't really want you to have any sense that this is a horror, scary film, but just like a couple, you know, that is really struggling to see if they can survive this dilemma that they have, which is, and I'm not ruining anything here. You kind of get this in
Mhm.
the first few minutes, but she's aborted a child when my character's been away from home without telling him. And he comes home to that surprise, and they're both just trying to work really, really hard to see if there's anything to salvage. And I think couples have gone through that too. You know, when there's like a inciting incident that creates a conflict within a relationship, you know, you both people have to look at each other and then look at the other person and just wonder, like, is this worth fighting for anymore? Or is it possible to get to the other side of this and get back to like a happier place? And I think we explore those themes for sure in our film.
And finally, what's next on your horizon? Are you staying in the horror genre, or are you coming back to something like war dramas, like Alone We Fight Again? What's next?
Well, I'm kind of a gun for hire, so it's less about what I want and what other people are willing to let me be in, right? But no, I've been very fortunate. I'm right now currently working on a video game that I'm not allowed to talk too much about, but that's going to keep me busy for the next few months, hopefully. And then yeah, as of now, yeah, that's about it. I'm just kind of like auditioning and waiting for the next thing to happen. So.
All right. Again, big fan of Alone We Fight. That's an awesome film.
Oh, I'm
And
so glad you liked it. Yeah, that movie I keep that would like we work miracles with the budget that we had and the explosions we had. That's really Justin's, I'd say, genius is making some cool explosions with not a lot of resources.
agreed. All right. For my fans at home, everybody go check out The Believer, available on digital platforms. Aidan, thank you for talking to me and congratulations.
No, thank you, man. I appreciate you taking the time to talk about the film. Thank you so much.